Scene 3 of Act 1 throws us back to the witches. We're again in a field, probably. The location of this is never really explained, but considering that there's thunder going on, there's still the storm that they're hearing, they're probably outside, and they've been up to some stuff while the battle has been going on. And the first witch says, "Where have you been, sister?" The second witch says, "I've been killing swine," so she's been out killing pigs. The third witch asks the first witch, "Where did you go during this time?" And then the first witch tells a little story, and also a little bit is revealed about their personality. So the first witch says, "A sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap, and munched and munched and munched. 'Give me,' quoth I." So she met a woman, she was sitting on a bench eating a bunch of chestnuts, and the witch says, "I want one, give me one." And then she said, "Get out of here, leave me alone, I don't want anything to do with you, witch." And being incensed by this woman, knowing that the woman's husband is a captain of a ship called the Tiger, is going to curse him, and is going to wreak havoc on her life, okay? Some of their powers, obviously they're supernatural here. She says, "And like a rat without a tail, I'll do, I'll do, I'll do." So she might be able to turn herself into an animal. They definitely can control different things, as we're about to find out when the second witch says, "I'll give thee a wind." So I'll give you some wind to sail you to your location. The first witch says, "You're very kind." The third witch says, "I'll give you some more wind." And the first witch is like, "Okay, chill, I have enough wind. And I have wind that controls all of the ports, and I can control the direction that anybody goes. So I am going to control the shipman's card." So basically, I'm going to control where this husband of this woman that rejected me, the sailor, this captain, where he goes. And you know what? I'm going to make it miserable for him. He's not going to sleep day or night. It's going to be a bumpy ride wherever he goes. And you know what? He's going to live a cursed life, okay? He shall dwindle. Then the first witch continues. He says, I can't destroy his ship, so they're not quite that powerful. They can kind of be pests and stuff like that, but can't just destroy things. I can make sure that he's lost at sea, she says. And then she's like, "Look what I have." Second witch is like, "Show me, show me." She pulls out, she says, "I have a pilot's thumb, wrecked as homeward as he did come." So obviously a pilot is not an airplane pilot during this time. It is a captain of a ship. So she says, "You know what? I have a captain's thumb here. He was wrecked at sea. So I'm going to use this thumb to create my spell to make sure that this other sailor also is lost at sea." Okay? So they have to use things in order to help them create these spells. We hear drum beats in the distance. That kind of means that Macbeth is approaching. As the third witch says, "A drum, Macbeth doth come." They're all dancing in a circle. They're kind of chanting, making a charm, maybe making a spell. They say, "The weird sisters hand in hand, posters of the sea and land." So we stretch all over the earth. As well, we call them the witches. We can also call them the weird sisters. That is something that they are known as in this play. And basically, they are conjuring up something at this point. Macbeth and Bank will finally enter our play, and we finally get to see what they say. And Macbeth's very first line is, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." Basically, like, I've never seen such a good and bad day at the same time. And Macbeth's first line is very important, okay? Shakespeare does it with intent. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. All right? That's very similar to what the witches said at the beginning. Fair is foul and foul is fair, right? Good and bad are now bad and good. They've mixed around. People don't know what is which. Remember, this is a play about morality, right? What is wrong? What is right? And Macbeth's first line not only echoes the witch's line that perhaps good and bad and good will switch around, but also saying that good and bad seem to go hand in hand. So Macbeth's first line of this play is very calculated by Shakespeare. Banquo now, remember Banquo is kind of Macbeth's best friend. He starts to say, how far is it to Forres? So they're trying to make their way to Forres, this place. Maybe they're trying to make their way back to the king. Maybe that's where the battle took place. And Banquo sees in the distance these three little creatures dancing around, weirdly moving around. And he's like, ugh, what are these so withered and so wild in their attire? They look not like inhabitants of Earth. So he says, you know what? They don't even look like they belong on Earth. And he's like, yet they're on it. And he kind of yells at them. He's like, are you guys, like, are you alive? He's like, can you answer my question? He says, you seem to understand me, but you really aren't, like, saying anything. He knows that they understand him because they're reacting by putting their choppy fingers, their fat fingers, to their skinny lips. And one of the early funny lines for me here, he says, you should be women, you look like women, but your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. So he's like, you're women, but you also have big beards, which obviously means you're not women. So Banquo is very confused as to what he is seeing. Macbeth then tries his hand at addressing the weird sisters, the witches, and says, speak if you can, what are you? The first witch, and this is the first prophecy that we get of this play. We get a few prophecies throughout this play, and they're always important. And this prophecy to Macbeth starts the play. Okay, this is what drives Macbeth. So they say, all hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail Macbeth, that shall be king thereafter. So they're greeting him, okay? They're saying, hello, Thane of Glamis, hello, Thane of Cawdor, hello, future king. And Banquo was like, turns to his friend and he's like, why, good sir, do you start and seem to fear things that sound so fair? He's like, so if these things are good things, like, why are you afraid? And then he turns to the witches and he's like, okay, in the name of truth, tell me honestly, are you fantastical? Okay, are you made up? Or are you actually what you outwardly show? He's still confused by what he's saying, right? He's like, are you real? Because I've never seen anything like you before. He says, my noble partner, you greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope. So you tell my friend here all these good things. You tell him that he's going to be a noble. You tell him he's got possible royal aspirations in the future. Maybe he's going to become king. And he has grown silent, okay? He has grown speechless. But to me, you do not speak. If you can look into the seeds of time, if you can look into the future and say which grain will grow and which will not, please speak to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate. He says, you know what? I don't want any favors. I don't want your hate. Just tell me honestly what will happen in my future. Okay? So he doesn't really need good things like Macbeth did. He's just curious about his future. And so the witches give their second prophecy. They say, hail, hail, hail. First witch says, lesser than Macbeth and greater. The second witch says, not so happy, yet much happier. And the third witch says, thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo. So Macbeth gets a very straightforward answer. You're going to be Thane of Glamis, you're going to be Thane of Cawdor, you're going to be the king. Easy. Banquo's prophecy, not so much. He says, you know what? You're going to be less than Macbeth, okay? You will never achieve the status that Macbeth does, but you will be greater. You will never be as happy as Macbeth, but you will be happier. And you will never be king yourself, but your descendants, your heirs, will be king. So somewhere down the line, Banquo will have kings in his family. All right? They hail Macbeth. They hail Banquo. They say, good for you, boys. Good for all the things that are going to happen to you. And Macbeth is like, stay, you imperfect speakers. Tell me more. He's like, okay, like, I don't know. Like, you're telling me all these, like, partial truths. Like, I need to know why you know this. He's like, by Sinel's death, I know I am Thane of Glamis. So Sinel would have been the old Thane of Glamis. So he says, I am Thane of Glamis. That part is already true. And then he says, but how of Cawdor? He is alive and he is a prosperous gentleman. So not only did Macbeth not know he was fighting against Cawdor when he was fighting the Norwegian army, but he doesn't know that Duncan has already actually gifted Macbeth the Thane of Cawdor. So, in reality, 2 of the 3 prophecies that the Weird Sisters give Macbeth have already come true. What does that mean for the 3rd prophecy? Macbeth still kind of doesn't really believe it. He's like, this doesn't really stand within the prospect of belief, no more than Cawdor. He's like, how will I be king if I'm not even a fan of Cawdor? And he's like, say where you came from and how you have this intelligence, this strange intelligence. Or why you're here on this heath, or why you stopped us. He's like, just tell us something. He's like, speak, I charge you. However, the witches vanish before they can give Macbeth an answer.